right, thank you so much for joining. I feel like I'm talking to family, because I am. All right, so my name is Yin Q. I've been part of Red Canary Song since 2018, and I have been a sex worker for 30 years. Please forgive me if I'm a little nervous up here. It's been a hell of a couple of weeks where I feel like I've lost a lot of my humor. But I'm here, and I got to walk through the wish trees, and the first tree that really stood out to me was one that said, "I wish I could stop farting." And being lactose intolerant, I can understand, so I'm right there with that writer. So I want to thank Tavia Nyango for inviting Red Canary Song to this excellent symposium, and to the Park Armory staff for the production of our gathering and the beautiful exhibition of Wish Trees by Yoko Ono. And I also want to honor the members of Red Canary Song for their work and courage that has informed this presentation. Many of our Red Canary Song community are unable to join us today as they are scared of leaving their homes. We have been facing a year of incessant raids, and now ICE is in our streets, taking our sisters, uncles, and aunties. RCS always starts our events with a land and space acknowledgement. We send a portion of our honorarium to the Lenape tribes to acknowledge the colonial theft and exploitation of the land that was cared for by the Lenape peoples. The genocide, past and present, of all peoples should be remembered and recognized. If you would like to offer a donation, the PayPal link and website is on the screen. I would also like to acknowledge the military history of the Armory. It was built as a training center for Civil War troops, a war declared to put an end to slavery. A noble and needed war for sure. But I will put a marker here on what governing powers mean when they say they want to end slavery. For an abolitionist quickie, we have seen how the ending of Black slavery transformed the prison industrial complex, which has been fed bodies by the targeting police of Black and brown communities. The 1965 end of slavery also led to the recruitment of cheap Chinese labor to build the railroads. But the influx of Chinese also scared the hell out of the governing powers, and so they created the first anti-immigrant, anti-woman, and anti-sex worker policy called the Page Act that banned Chinese women from entering the US as they were all suspected of being prostitutes. Now, instead of plantations and railroads, prisoners have become captive workers, earning pennies per hour with no labor rights. Captive labor profits select corporations and shareholders, Starbucks, McDonald's, Walmart. This slavery permutation will come back up later when we address the current anti-trafficking movement. The Park Ave Armory is one of my favorite spaces in Manhattan. And remembering this history does not need to put a damper on our day together. Instead, it's a testament to how community, conversation, and art can transform the architecture of war and hypocrisy to an incubator of dreams, truth, and definitive action. As an audience drawn to the Symposium of Dreaming Together, I don't have to tell you that we are living in another person's dream, our nightmare. We are facing an onslaught of basic human rights and dignity, and so I want to offer what we all need during this time: care. I want to take a moment to invite you to remember your body and breathe. If you would like, place your hand over your heart to feel the subtle but strong pulse, to feel your lungs expand, and let go. What part of your body feels pain at this moment? With arthritis, I know I am constantly trying to push past the pain, but then it catches me. I need to acknowledge it every morning. So let's take a moment together to shake or move, rub that part of your body that needs care. It can be embarrassing to do in public, right? To show care for our bodies. But this is essential. When we talk about sex work, massage work, body work, our bodies are our most basic resource. And we've layered shame and rules over how we use this resource, how we enjoy this resource, and who gets to have rights over our resource. Corporations have come up with a solution on how we may regard pleasure and pain, and they call it wellness. I buy compression gloves and massagers and creams and supplements. Corporations are plotting to produce the next gadget you will buy for body wellness, but if I were to give you a massage, and I'm very good at it, and if you were to pay me, I could get arrested for unlicensed massage. Now, there's going to be a lot of information for the next 20 minutes, so please take another moment to breathe, to wiggle, and find comfort. So for the storefront gallery exhibition a few years ago, our RCS art team designed this gorgeous massage menu to illustrate the cost of massage work to the massage workers and the racial gentrification of the wellness industry. So you'll see on one side the cost of the massage work. Undercover police officers solicit sexual services from Asian migrant massage workers and then arrest workers, confiscate earnings, cell phones, and materials in the business that are used as evidence for the anti-trafficking courts. Western massage spas, on the other hand, have appropriated all of the Eastern practices of body care, shiatsu, hot stone therapy, even acupressure. The fancy ones have the decor, too, with a Buddha in the hallway, maybe a fountain, bamboo. And yet women migrating from Asia are shut out of the industry because of the high obstacles in obtaining a massage license. Workers not only face arrest for prostitution, but also the unlicensed massage fines. And let me tell you, to obtain this license from the National Massage Board, one must enroll in a school that costs $5,000 to $30,000, classes given in English only, and the final test is only in English, no translator allowed. On top of rigorous coursework, a worker must also perform 1,000 hours of massage work unpaid. Can you imagine if this were in the restaurant industry or anywhere else? This is part of the anti-trafficking trap. Once workers are arrested, they are also encouraged to identify as a trafficked survivor, to clear their record of prostitution, so that the numbers of reported trafficked and rescue victims goes up for the anti-trafficking NGOs to get funding. Recently in Queens, New Pride Agenda has published this chart finding showing us the racialized attack on Asian women. Now, as we know, for our history and outside of the country, there has been a long history of US military imperialism and government-sanctioned establishments of sex trades in Asia. During the Korean War, US military acted with the Korean government in setting up forced prostitution brothels. During the Vietnam War, the US military set up R&R stations for soldiers in Bangkok, Hawaii, Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur, Penang, Manila, Seoul, Singapore, Taipei, and Tokyo. These are the places that are now on high alert lists now for surveillance and detainment of women immigrating to the US. Okay. Now I'm going to introduce our tech team, who has this beautiful mapping project that we have been doing with RCS and Brown University. So I would like to introduce Shravya and Armand to the stage.
Hi, Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming here today and to listen to us talk a little bit more about our research with RCS at Brown. So my name is Arman, and we are both part of a team at the Brown University Center for the Study of Slavery and Justice, where we work with Professor Elena Shi to map the criminalization landscape of Asian massage in New York City, in collaboration with Red Canary Song's outreach team and their oral history team. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more about what we found through our research and the changes in the criminalization of Asian massage work.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Yin, for that brilliant introduction and for starting to contextualize anti-trafficking for us. So building off of that introduction on anti-trafficking, what we've been seeing in the past 10, 15 years, particularly from 2010 to 2020, we saw US-based anti-trafficking organizations, such as the Polaris Project, which runs the US's national anti-trafficking hotline, design entire campaigns around shutting down, quote, illicit massage businesses, equating all Asian massage work as criminal and illegal. And the invention of the illicit massage business as a site of human trafficking spawned the creation of new organizations that promise to harness the potential of data analytics, machine learning tools, and surveillance techniques to aid law enforcement in the policing and prosecution of Asian massage work. And if we can go to the next slide. So we can see here, for instance, data shared by the network, previously known as Hayrick Research, has been used to stoke national moral and racist panic around Asian massage work, creating the conditions that demand its abolition. So in 2021, you can see here that the New York Post released an article publicizing the network's data, claiming that massage parlors outnumbered Starbucks establishments by 2 to 1. And Yin and I were just talking about this, kind of the irony of this prior to the presentation, given Starbucks' clear anti-union efforts right now, right? And so in response to the overwhelming increase, go ahead.
Next slide. Thanks. So this is where our research comes in, kind of like Shravya was saying, in response to the kind of overwhelming fetishization of data-driven techniques to map trafficking taken by these large anti-trafficking initiatives. So we have, over the past year and a half, been working on a mapping tool called Body Workers Atlas. And if you want to pull out your phones and type in bodyworkersatlas.com, you can see the map on your phone and kind of follow along through the data narrative that we're going to be giving to you.
And make sure you just like flip your phone horizontally so
Yes.
you see the full screen to see that.
So this map, like we said, combines our data journalism analysis with the integration of oral histories, which enable RCS organizers and workers to comment on and critique the state's data as it is, which, you know, for so long has been used to point to the quote-unquote spread of trafficking and has been consistently deployed to further the criminalization of Asian massage work through legislation and other racist and xenophobic moral panics. So if we can go to the next slide. We used publicly available data sets from NYC Open Data, which we then overlaid that track the 3 main forms of criminalization against Asian massage workers in the past 2 decades. So as we can see in this first slide, the main form of criminalization that was happening in the mid-20s to the mid-2000s to the early 2010s was represented by prostitution charges. So that's the blue hexagons you'll see on your screen. And we'll talk about kind of the other criminal codes that that have led to the criminalization of Asian massage work, but broadly they are unlicensed massage, which will be represented by the green hexagons, and then Department of Buildings violations, which is represented by maroon hexagons. So the hexagons represent the frequency of a certain type of violation in any given year, with increasing brightness noting a higher concentration of these violations. And this is important because, as you can see, most of the violations happen in ethnic enclaves, like Queens, like in Flushing, Hunts Point, and in Chinatown in Manhattan. And this is important because, as Yin showed in the previous slide, workers of color are far more likely to be criminalized for their work. And so in a previous iteration of this map, the hexagons were replaced by specific data points that kind of showed where the violation was occurring on a street level. And throughout this map, we've had iterative design processes with the RCS team where we have engaged in constant feedback. And one of the major points that we heard was that there were concerns about privacy with having so many data points being publicly available at the street level. And so we decided that, to both allow some specificity on where this criminalization is occurring and also to protect the privacy of workers, that we would implement this hexagonal shape.
Yeah. And so as Armand started to already get into, we saw in the early, mid to late 2000s and early 2010s, a predominant trend, right, in using a prostitution charge in the criminal codes of New York State to go after sex work as a sort of moral deviancy. And then when we get into the mid-2010s, so like 2014 to 2017, we see, as a result of lobbying of anti-trafficking organizations across the country, really this widespread proposing and adoption of anti-trafficking state laws that create new categories of bodywork that allow law enforcement specifically to police Asian massage work. And we can see during this time period, right, that arrests under unlicensed massage began to overtake arrests under prostitution. And you can see in particularly, I think that's Flushing, right, areas that you would associate with higher proportions of Asian workers, Asian residents, right, that there's higher levels of policing of unlicensed massage in those areas. And so, as Yin mentioned, when we see state laws kind of implement requirements for English proficiency, the completion of a GED in the US, we're seeing how blatantly xenophobic requirements are legitimating labor through markers of citizenship and class. And so if we can go to the next slide. Now this is in 2020, and so we see here like a real noticeable decline, right, in the number of colored bins, particularly also in blue bins, and so we're seeing what might be initially assumed as a decrease in policing of sex work, of body work, of massage work in association with the pandemic and maybe decreases in overall work that's happening. But we actually see the trends with prostitution charges disappearing continue into the present. And that is actually a reflection of the decline of criminalization on the basis of prostitution, reflecting growing international consensus on the merits of decriminalization. So for example, in 2021, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office announced that they would stop prosecuting prostitution charges because they disproportionately harmed people of color, LGBTQ communities, and the DA's office also mentioned that that was due to the strong advocacy work of decrim advocates. But next slide. Yeah. What we see coming now into the present with that decline in the criminalization based on prostitution is a rise in Department of Buildings violations. And so we see here that the city hasn't, in this kind of growing decrim landscape, hasn't actually given up on criminalizing Asian massage work. They've simply shifted to a form of auxiliary policing, racialized auxiliary policing, using the Department of Buildings to target the massage parlor as a space. So in particular, the city has been mobilizing a 1970s era education statute to disproportionately target Asian migrant women while claiming to rescue them as victims of human trafficking. And some of you may have seen the coverage of this, right, during Operation, quote unquote, right, Restore Roosevelt, where Mayor Eric Adams made a big point of walking down Roosevelt Avenue and claiming to rescue trafficking victims, and that there was a lot of trafficking happening on Roosevelt Avenue, which we can see from RCS organizers is not how workers themselves are describing their own work. And I'll let Armand get into the kind of particularities that we found in kind of trying to identify through the data this shift in policing and the challenges that came with that.
So in trying to identify and clean, so to speak, like clean the data of relevant Department of Buildings violations, we found that the tickets are not actually all issued under the same building code. So like Shavia was talking about, these auxiliary forms of state policing are intentionally amorphous and intentionally designed to kind of give the illusion that the state is changing their criminalization tactics. But in actuality, this is not true. So we found that building violation codes are deployed under categories such as work without a permit and illegal use in a commercial district, which, like I said, makes it difficult to discern just how many people and how many businesses are being criminalized under this new method. So when we cleaned the data, we sorted for words like massage and unlicensed physical to kind of give us a sense of how many Department of Buildings violations were occurring. And this is almost certainly an undercount because like I said, we don't know the specificity with which violation details are required to be recorded. And if they're ever left intentionally short or there are administrative kind of errors in data input, that data is kind of impossible to get a full grasp around. But even with the clear disappearance of the kind of extent of the state's criminalization of Asian massage work, with unlicensed massage and prostitution charges going down, we know that the patterns in the data are unmistakably clear. The city is moving towards highly racialized auxiliary forms of policing that harm both sex workers and massage workers in the city. And if we go to the next slide. But the state's data here that we visualize is only really becomes valuable when it's put into relation with the words and analyses of organizers and workers with RCS. This intervention into these data-driven techniques by anti-trafficking organizations allows organizers to respond to the data through their oral histories collected by RCS's outreach team. And these oral histories, if anyone is looking at the map on your phone, are symbolized by red markers and are placed in the neighborhoods where RCS organizers work and live, such as Corona, Flushing, and Jackson Heights. These stories demonstrate the care inherent to workers' labor and the devastating impacts of criminalization, from raids to heightened risk of robbery and exploitation. Core organizer Lisa with RCS will speak more about her own experiences, but before then, we will pass it over back to Yin to kind of further contextualize this relationship between sex work, massage work, and anti-trafficking.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and reference again Elena Shi at Brown University, who is director of the Center for the Study of Slavery and Justice, and I'm pretty much just directly quoting from her work before the global research of the end of modern day slavery movement. She has embedded with the anti-trafficking NGOs that are rescuing women in Thailand and Myanmar, and these organizations were recruiting sex workers to work in plants for very little pay, bless you, and long work days making slave-free goods. So these goods include everything from baskets, blankets, jewelry, clothing. You've probably seen these stores before, especially if you travel up and down kind of the eastern side, because feminists love to buy these slave-free goods. But the women who are actually making these goods are required to live and sleep in the dormitories. And they often complain about being locked inside, not being allowed to actually go out and see their families. So I ask you, is this a slave-free good? In the United States, anti-trafficking orgs such as Polaris and Garden of Hope collude with the court system, forcing sex workers and survivors of trafficking through re-education programs that are based on Christian shame and stigma. These AT orgs also create a greater system of civilian surveillance. Hotel workers, airport staff, and truck drivers are trained to detect trafficking, i.e. sex work, and are given an award that is fueled by the American anxiety over our history of slavery, and that award is called the Harriet Tubman Award. So they are actually using the same language to name what is happening now, and yet at the same time, there's also the same hypocrisy that we've seen throughout the history of ending slavery. So when you see the anti-trafficking posters at every transport hub, you are seeing a message that actually no one can disagree with, because we all want to help the exploited, especially women and children. But it's actually a skin of a very complex, hypocritical and nauseating sausage of what the governing powers mean when they say they want to end slavery. So Red Canary Song's work is taking a look at the anti-trafficking movement, and then also bringing it to the streets and through education. But we also recognize that brick and mortar are not the only spaces that sex workers have been trapped and processed. With white feminist celebrities leading campaigns, anti-trafficking orgs were able to pass SESTA FOSTA in 2018, which is an online ban of platforms that host sex worker advertisements. It was touted as a way to protect children from sex trafficking, but a year after that it was set into place, FBI reported that it lost its primary sources of tracking and then arresting predators of minors. Predators have now tunneled to the dark web and have found other ways to hide. SESTA FOSTA, though, eradicated the internal platforms that we use to conduct work safely. Prior to the bans, workers could both advertise, vet clients, and perform in privacy. We could build networks through online conversation groups and share lists of clients of who was dangerous and who was just merely smelly. No laughs, huh? It's serious stuff, though. Since the passing of SESTA FOSTA, more workers are based on the streets and in street-level parlors for economic survival. So we see how the state has actually trapped the most marginalized sex workers, Black, Latinx, trans, migrant, queer, disabled, and Asian workers, to be fed to the industrial complex again and to the anti-trafficking orgs. Another anti-trafficking claim that is false is about the travel of massage workers. They track how massage workers travel throughout the states, sometimes together, sometimes in vans, and sometimes on public buses together. Massage workers often move from location to location because the nature of this work favors new girls who earn money during the first few months of the job. Because workers are staying temporarily in each location and are spending long hours on the workplace, many do not want to pay the extra for separate housing arrangements, so they do live at the spaces for economic reasons, not because they are necessarily coerced or kidnapped or trapped. They also like to stay in the same spaces because it's very sorority-like. Limited language skills make workers nervous when speaking to outsiders, especially when traveling throughout different parts of the country. Customers and workers often have very positive relationships. In cases of labor exploitation, a high percentage of those calling national human trafficking hotlines are actually the customers, letting people know that something is going down. Actually, the criminalizing of the purchase of sex dissuades people from having regular contact with massage workers and from reporting labor exploitation when they see it in the workplace. And I am going to go ahead and hand this over to Layla to speak about decriminalization of sex work.
Just join you right here. Yeah, so as you can see, Yin has already explained clearly that sex worker rights are human rights. Regardless of whether we perform sexual labor or not, we're all deserving of dignity, care, and protection, safe working conditions, and living wages. It's wrong to make assumptions that all massage workers are sex workers or trafficking survivors, or vice versa, without us self-identifying. Hear our stories and know that there is nothing for us without us. By conflating consensual sex work and massage work with exploitation, policies perpetuate polyvictimization, increase vulnerability to trafficking, and undermine the rights of sex workers. I don't know if everyone is aware, but our current legal models are more harmful than helpful. You may have heard of the Nordic model we must say no to, which does not protect us or you for that matter. The equality and demand model, partial criminalization, bans everyone's pleasure, bodily autonomy, and right to sexual health and freedom. And we are all at risk just by association. So standing in solidarity with sex workers and Red Canary Song means supporting the full decriminalization of sex work. Join us to advocate together and end discrimination.
Thank you, Layla. Okay, so just to go over the equality model again, the equality model actually criminalizes the client but protects the worker. Now I want to ask you something. If this were to be in the restaurant industry, where they were criminalizing the person who's coming to the restaurant, but protecting the person serving the food, how does this work? Does this make sense? And yet they're still calling it the equality model. That is part of the anti-trafficking game of actually appropriating this language that actually has no equality itself. Workers themselves know how to create safer working conditions, dignified labor, flag and address abuse, exploitation, and knows how to protect and steer minors out of the industry, as we have seen from other countries that have done this in terms of full decriminalization. Okay. I'm not going to play this video because I don't think we have time today. It is on YouTube, though, and we're going to start now the history of Red Canary Song. So we will, Red Canary Song began when Yang Song, a 37-year-old Chinese massage worker, fell to her death during a police raid in Flushing. Prior to her death, after multiple arrests, the police had been harassing Yang Song to become an informant on other workers. She had refused and had written to her family that she was scared of the police, and then on the night of November 25th, 2017, an undercover cop and squad team armed with guns swarmed into the building of massage workers. One woman hid on a window ledge for 5 hours while another jumped from a window and escaped the police but suffered a detrimental back injury. Yang Song was on the 4th floor. Despite multiple video cameras throughout the building, there were none that held footage of Yang Song's interaction with the police, only one that captured her body falling. We declare that she was murdered by the NYPD. Sex workers and allies took to the streets to protest the police and to gather mutual aid for Yang Song's mother and brother, and thus Red Canary Song was formed. Red represents the color of sex workers. Canary is a migratory bird that was often sent into coal mines to detect poisonous gas, indicated by their death or survival. Song is a memorial to Yang Song, but also a reminder that this organizational identity is our voice and our stories, and not the whole of our lived experience.
If I could communicate.
Oops, sorry. So after we attended a vigil for Yang Song, one of the first things that our heads came together to think about was just to throw a party. for fundraising. So members from Kink Out, another collective that I'm part of, and Red Canary Song teamed up to throw a fundraiser that was an all-Asian drag, burlesque, kink, tattoo, and art vendor event in Brooklyn. And this seed money was able to fund mutual aid and support at the start of the pandemic for many of the workers that we interacted with. During the pandemic, just a few years in, or a short time, few months in rather, in March of 2021, a white man killed 8 people on a shooting spree that targeted 8 Asian migrant massage workers in Atlanta, Georgia. During the morning, the shooter watched pornography in the confines of his own bedroom and then was shamed by his roommate. Filled with self-loathing, the perpetrator walked into spas during the midday and aimed his gun into spaces where workers were offering care and relief for their clients' bodies. 6 of the victims were Asian women from Korea and China. They were mothers, wives, daughters, and aunties. And regardless of whether they engaged in erotic services or not, those women were murdered for being only seen as sex workers. Red Canary Song was centered right after that as the only organization in the US at the time that was led by Asian sex workers. We had 6 core members at the time. In the midst of pandemic Zoom world, we hosted a vigil that was watched by over 4,000 people worldwide and raised over $15,000 for the families of the victims. Statements against more policing, and we sent out statements against more policing and the anti-Asian hate campaign that only still fuels the punitive incarceration system. Yves Tong Nguyen, who is not able to be with us today, is one of our core members, also organizes with Survived and Punished, and her work deeply informs how we move intentionally as a lateral and abolition-based collective. So we are a horizontal collective. There's no one director. That's why when I was asked to speak and give a TED Talk, you get at least 5 or 6 of us on stage, not just one person. So now I would like to really emphasize our mutual aid work. Now we have currently 16 core members consisting of 2 outreach teams, Chinese and Korean, who are current or former massage workers themselves, and the teams visit workers at their homes or at massage businesses to talk to workers about what issues they may be facing. And I'd like to invite our members, Lisa and Fran, to speak. 15 minutes.
Hello everyone, my name is Fran. I use they them pronouns. And I'm part of the core team and outreach team at Red Canary Song. And today I will be interpreting for Lisa, who is also a very important member of the Chinese outreach team.
大家好，中午。我是来自中国的小华，来自成都，来美国10年了，从事做按摩工作10年。
Hello everyone, I am Xiaohua. I come from Sichuan, China. I came to the United States 10 years ago, which was 10 years spent in the massage industry.
从踏上美国的第一天，我就接触到这个行业。这个行业不需要太多的英文，不需要很高的学历，也不需要长时间的学习的工作，很适合我负债累累的我。我从孤身一人到好友熟练的纽约，从胆怯的接待客人到熟练的报价，给他们提供水果、咖啡，从打工人到拥有自己的小店，当了老板，我付出了太多的精力，太多了。
I went into massage the first day I landed in the US. It doesn't require very good English, a degree, or a long time of training, so it was perfect for debt-ridden me. I went from being all alone to having customers and friends from all boroughs of New York, from awkwardly receiving customers to bargaining with confidence, preparing fruits and coffee for them with care, From working for someone else to owning my own parlor, it's been a journey with so many hidden costs and up and downs.
但我仍然精心着我的小店，按摩小店，这个视为我家的小店。白天，它是我收入的来源；晚上，它是我的家。把按摩床推到靠墙边的位置，就是我做梦的地方。
But I still run my little massage parlor with care, the place that I consider my home. During the day, it is my source of living. At night, it's my home. The massage bed pushed against the wall is where I dream.
我经历过很多次入室打劫，也被警察骚扰、逮捕过多次，尤其是选举换届前后，政客和警察是他们拿我们亚商按摩群体作为成绩。这个月，我身边的按摩姐妹们都因为移民局的抓捕而惶惶不安，有人在街上直接抓人带走，有人在家里挨饿，不敢踏出家门。我们的店也歇业了，每个人都在家里默默地算着银行的余额，等待大抓捕结束。这样的对我们不公平，我们已经忍受不下去了。
In my 10 years, I've had many break-in robberies. I have been harassed and arrested by the police many times, especially around the time of elections, when the politicians and police always make a show of attacking Asian massage communities. This month, my massage worker sisters are all in panic because of the massive ICE raids. There are sisters detained by ICE when walking on the street, sisters starving at home, afraid to step out of their doors. Our parlors have all closed down. Everyone is calculating their bank balances while waiting for the mass raids to be over. With such injustice, we can't bear anymore.
我有一个梦想，我不全要自己在美国站住脚，还要帮助别的移民女性逮捕他们，建立他们的事业，重启自己的人生。有一天，一群满怀笑脸的人提着礼物来到我的小店，告诉我们他们来自一个叫红缨锅的爱心组织，是专门服务于按摩工作者和性工作者。他们用真诚逐渐挖掘了我，我对他们没有质疑，我开始主动联系他们，参加他们的社区活动，直到现在，我已经是他们之中的一员。因为红缨锅给予了我温暖，我不再孤单，我也要用我的温暖去温暖那些生活失去热情的人。
This is the dream I've had for a long time. Not only will I get back on my feet, I will also help other immigrant women establish their careers and restart their lives. One day, a group of smiling people came to my parlor with gifts, telling me that they came from Red Canary Song, an organization for massage workers and sex workers. Their sincerity gradually dissolved my doubts, and I began to take initiative in talking to them and participating in their community events. Now I am one of them. Because of Red Canary Song, I started to pass on the warmth I received to others who have lost their passion for life.
在红缨锅，我现在在外展队工作，得到了实现这个梦想。每个月，我们会去看望社区生病的、受伤的按摩姐姐，给他们买菜，带他们去看医生，帮助被逮捕的人、打劫的姐妹，联系律师， 同时，我们也会举办节日聚会，和身处异国他乡的姐妹们一起庆祝，关怀彼此，互帮互助。现在我们在法拉盛和江森汉的群里已经有超过400名的按摩姐姐。在江森汉，我们和另外的草根组织一起反抗警察暴力和监管，应对近1年来的大规模警察突然袭击和检查和封店。
This is my dream in reality. In Canary Song, I now work in the outreach team. Every month, for the Mutual Aid Project, we visit sick and injured massage and sex workers. We buy them groceries, take them to the doctor, and connect sisters who have been arrested or robbed with a lawyer. We host holiday events to celebrate with our sisters who are also alone in this country, caring for each other and supporting each other. We now have over 400 massage sisters in our Flushing and Jackson Heights network. In Jackson Heights, we work with other grassroots organizations to fight against police harassment and surveillance, responding to the massive police raids and parlor shutdowns since December 2023.
虽然这条道路上很艰辛，但我也收获了许多与按摩姐妹们、红缨锅的同事们都成为了家人以外的朋友。这份工作让我看到了姐妹们的力量，希望这份力量也可以传递给在场的你们。衷心的感谢大家的支持，谢谢。
Although difficulties were numerous on this journey, so were the rewards. I've become family with my massage worker sisters and co-workers at Canary Song. This work has led me to see the power of immigrant workers. We hope that by telling our stories, we can share this power with all of you too. I am deeply grateful for all of your support for our work.
Please stay. Okay. All right, thank you so much, Lisa and Fran. I know we have just a few minutes left, so I'm going to speed through the art activations. So at Vigils and Memorials, our art team creates altars for massage beds using the curtains as a precarity of lives of the Asian migrant sex workers. Our art is specifically about creating spaces for grieving so that we can fight for the living, because even in our own communities, we are invisibilized. I will tell you that one place that I am out as a sex worker to almost everyone everywhere, but do you know where I hide? The PTA. Because there are spaces where it's too dangerous to be out as a sex worker. Outreach members often talk about hiding within communities of churches, spaces that are supposed to be safe for us. We create spaces where we can be fully seen. Our dim sum tables are where all of our Venn diagrams of our identities are allowed. We realize that placemaking is crucial to creating and maintaining human connections with one another. So these are some of our art activations. This one is a memorial to the 8 lives lost during Atlanta, and you will see portraits of the eyes of the victims that was painted by a disabled migrant massage worker. We decided to only paint the eyes so as not to politicize the identities of the workers themselves. And so you can see this is part of our vigil in Washington Square Park with Korean drumming, when we were invited by Gayatri Galpanath and the Center for Study of Sexuality and Gender. We also created an exhibition at our inner quarters where you see 3 massage beds turned into spaces of work, and also to our spiritual, cultural practice of altar making. You'll see one that has bondage bed because many of us who were originally part of Red Canary Song were dominatrixes. This is part from our work at Storefront Gallery. And you can see it's another recreation of the intimate body space and the simulacrum accentuating mutual practice of placemaking. Our outreach team takes photos of workers' hands when they go out because selfies amongst our friends is dangerous. And this parlor is also a direct reference to Lisa's Flower Spa. Walking through the exhibition itself, once you get to the back massage bed, we had the voices of massage workers speaking in Korean and Chinese Mandarin to the workers themselves, showing how there's how language can both be the architecture of inclusion as well as exclusion. You also see the domestic items that workers use in different ways, not only to hold food in a fridge, but also to have the massage cooling towels, the rice cooker that is also used to heat stones. But these items are also used by the anti-trafficking orgs as evidence that women are being held against their will in areas, in their workspaces. This is a list of our art exhibitions and throughout the years. And our feature documentary, which came out 2 years ago, which is now on Good Docs. It is the first documentary to center the Asian migrant massage worker narrative and story. It's been screened throughout the country, and as well as Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Ireland, UK, South Korea, Thailand, Taiwan, and Singapore. And my last slide shows who we coalition build, because we are not alone. We have to do this together. Together, we can fly in power. And that's it. I want to say thank you. I feel like this last slide, I don't need to explain anything. Hongbao is the way that we give gifts to each other. We send out a lot of emergency cash gifts this past month for Lunar New Year. And if you would like to support us as well, this is our PayPal. So any questions for our full team, whether it's the mapping team or whether it's the fantastic outreach team? Hi, Taya. Yes, because actually, so the question was, oh, you want to ask it in the? Yeah, actually, that's a question I ask a lot of people, of everybody who comes into Red Canary Song, because I do have my own stories, and I think each of us has brings that in their pockets to our vigils. I have lost so many friends because of the oppression and the shame and the stigma that is on sex work. I've also been incarcerated myself. I've been arrested. And so seeing this system, but I'm also was in a part of sex work that had a lot more privilege because I was able to be indoors and was able to vet clients through email, through websites. So my link to Red Canary Song was really going to the vigils and connecting with the culture and connecting with the people there, and realizing that the only way that we can fight the system together is by looking at each of our own social capital of what privilege do we have to be able to hack the systems for other spaces, or for other people rather, who have less privilege. So we work in a way that is very lateral, and we are constantly thinking about how do we hack all of the systems. So for example, Tavia bringing us in here amongst scholars and artists and people who know a lot about Yoko Ono, which I know nothing, is hacking the system. You know, how are we getting into institutions? We have to hack financial institutions to get money to undocumented workers. We have to hack all of the art systems to be able to bring in all our art exhibitions so that we can create space and actual visibility, not only to educate the public, but also so that workers can see themselves. Because we all know that if you don't see yourself in the stories that are out there, you question whether your story is valid. You question whether, like, what are you fighting up against? Because each person has to fight up against so much. They're going through so much personal and systemic trauma that if they don't understand that what kinds of systems are coming at them, it can break everybody down, and isolate. That's a wrap. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day. Oh, okay, yes.
Thank you. I'm also working with like community members in terms of creating art projects, and I'm really interested in what you say about like for example, using their voices or using like zooming lenses on their hands instead of like showing their faces. I'm really interested in how does this kind of ethical concerns about also to protecting the participants. I wonder if you can elaborate a little bit more on that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really important for all of the sex workers, massage workers to not have to show their faces. So even during the feature documentary, the main narrative of Charlotte, who's an outreach member, we don't show her face at all. And yet you can see through her hands, through her care, through us hugging, through her hands making kimchi, through her food, you can get a sense of who she is. It's really important, I think, for all of us to think about facial recognition and securities. I mean, still, I think everybody who is interacting with social media needs to really understand what are we, this dystopian future that we're going into, that we really need to protect ourselves. And is no, like, sex workers have been dealing with this since time of the beginning of the internet, of harassment, of people stalking us, people using our faces. I don't remember what that's called, catfishing or something. So all of these ideas of like, how can we protect our identities, but still actually make sure our stories are out there, we have to have like really careful thoughts about like, how is that going to look? Because the camera, as we know, can be a weapon as well, if you're not conscious of like, how are you going to intentionally use that camera? Thank you so much. Enjoy the day.